From running errands to walks with friends and long days on your feet, the Merrell Jungle Moc is the perfect all-around shoe. The just right fit, unparalleled comfort, and ready-to-style look empowers you to express yourself. Make your way with the Merrell Jungle Moc.
Fact: 3 billion of us worldwide depend on seafood as a key source of protein. And yet, overfishing is the #1 threat to our ocean. Sorry, 3 billion people. How about switching your fish night to something sustainable? Try Good Catch Foods for 100% plant-based seafood that is truly off the hook. Saving the ocean feels good, and the taste, delicious. Go to goodcatchfoods.com to learn more, or shop online.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. Hey, what's going on, everybody? So earlier, I uploaded the chat I had with Jen and Lisa from the Prince and the Pervert podcast, and hopefully, if you folks have not done so already, you go and give them a follow, a subscribe, and you support their work any way that you possibly can, because they're doing really good work over there. They uncover a lot of things that other people have missed, and they have been on the right track the whole entire time, in my opinion. So if you're not following them and you're not familiar with their work, do yourself a favor, listen to my chat with them, and then afterwards, because I'm sure that you'll be sold, go and give them a listen. Go give them a subscribe. Go follow them on Twitter. Give them a shout out. Follow their work. Support it. All of that good stuff. Because there are not very many people who have had the wherewithal and the grind and hustle to stick on this case the way that Jen and Lisa have for so long. And it just also goes to show you that this isn't something that is just caught fire in America. This spans continents. This spans nations. This spans, civilized people all over the world take a look at this and they're disgusted by it. So you see how it has just become almost a movement with this as the lightning rod of people being fed up with the two-tier justice system, being fed up with the way the laws are manipulated in the favor of the so-called elite. And it has all just come to a head. So if you dig this story and you're interested in getting a different perspective from some very smart and knowledgeable people, make sure you hop on to whatever podcast service you use and you subscribe to the Prince and the Pervert podcast. You will not be disappointed. All right, look, on to our article today. And I've been waiting a couple of days to jump on in here and absolutely eviscerate the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family. Now, it's being reported as if this is new news to people. It's not. We've been all over this for a long time now. We knew that he stayed at Epstein's during that trip. Now, obviously, the Daily Mail has some confirmation, so the Unsullied will get a glimpse finally, and they won't just hear it on some podcast somewhere, right? You know how some people are. They're still caught up in that paradigm where they believe that the legacy media or the print media is the only arbiter of truth. And anybody who does independent content or investigative journalism who's not attached to a big outlet is telling you fake news. And that's definitely what the establishment wants, right? They want you to only listen to their narrative, to only listen to what they're telling you. And since there has been an explosion of independent content creators, investigative journalists, and independent journalists, the establishment understands that it's in big trouble, right? So this is a situation, this is a story that people want to know the truth about. And the legacy media has not told the truth about Prince Andrew. Now remember, Amy Robach and ABC specifically killed their story, their interview with Virginia, because they were scared they were going to lose access to the royal family, lose access to Prince Andrew. So they never really reported this whole story, right? It was up to independent content creators and investigative journalists to really dig down and hammer this out. But it's nice to see it in print finally, and it's nice to see that the Unsullied are starting to get more of an idea about just how complicit Andrew has been throughout this whole entire thing. And the biggest damning factor, in my opinion, besides obviously the allegations from Virginia, is the way this guy conducts himself, the way he handles himself. He's out there talking all sorts of shit in this Emily Maitlis interview, and all of it basically has been proven to be a lie. So why should anyone believe him about what happened that night, especially considering the strongest bit of evidence these people have presented thus far is some sort of scenario where Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyers went and hopped in the bathtub at Ghislaine Maxwell's Belgrave pad and said it's just too small. They don't believe anything could have occurred in there. That is all that they have brought to the table so far. And while it's relevant that all information should be put out there and all information should be considered when talking about something like this, the fact of the matter is that's not enough, right? Especially considering all of the holes in Andrew's story, all of the holes in the Joe Exotic of the Windsor's alibis. His own daughter saying she doesn't recall some sort of pizza party. And all you have for me, let me get this straight now. If I'm missing something, let me know. Now, all you have for me on the other side is A, they're prostitutes, meaning the survivors are all prostitutes. And B, the bathtub was too small. Meanwhile, loads and loads of evidence are coming out almost on a daily basis for the last few days anyway, considering the Daily Mail's investigation about Prince Andrew, his lies, and how it's obvious he is hiding something. So, let's jump into this article from the Daily Mail and see just exactly what sort of quagmire the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family finds himself in now. Headline, Proof Prince Andrew misled Emily Maitlis. Duke did stay at Jeffrey Epstein's New York mansion, and secret itinerary shows hours of private time during trip when Virginia Roberts claims he slept with her. So, again, right off of the bat, right? We all knew that he stayed at Epstein's. This has been established for those of us who have been following the case for some time, right? So we knew that he was at Epstein's. We knew that he was lying. And that's where all of the vitriol came from. This dude sat up there and tried to gaslight everybody and tried to take control of the narrative instead of simply just saying, hey, look, I got caught up in Jeffrey Epstein's blackmail plot. I had no idea what was going on. I thought I was going over there to meet some girls with him. I had no idea these were underage girls, and he was sucking me into his plot. No, he has no excuses, not even something like that. Oh, I wasn't there. I never met her. I was at a pizza party. My fingers aren't that fat. I can't sweat. Give me a break already. Meanwhile, as he's spinning all of that utter bullshit to us, weaving it like he's Rumpelstiltskin, we're all sitting back saying to ourselves, well, this is going to have a boomerang effect. This is going to come back and smack the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family square between the eyes. And here we are, folks. The reckoning has come. The slapback has occurred. And the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family is certainly earning the moniker. This article was authored by Stephen Wright and Richard Pendlebury. Prince Andrew, the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, did stay at Jeffrey Epstein's New York mansion during a trip when it is alleged he slept with a trafficked teenager the Daily Mail can reveal for the first time. Well, I'm glad that the Daily Mail is revealing it now, and I'm not going to go too hard on them considering they've done pretty good work in this case. But what I will say is, if you've been following the podcast, mine, you've been following Jen and Lisa's podcast and others, obviously, then you knew all of this stuff already. You knew that he stayed there. You knew that he lied about it. And you knew that it wasn't doing the honorable thing to fly across the pond to go break up with your buddy. And now, well, I'm happy to reveal that the Daily Mail can also reveal that for the first time. Contradicting his car crash TV interview, Hindenburg-level interview, you mean? Sources have confirmed the Queen's second son was indeed a guest at the pedophile tycoon's Manhattan home in April 2001, raising questions about his other recollections of the time. Well, what do you know? Again, I say it all the time, right? I'm not Inspector Clouseau. I'm certainly not Sherlock Holmes. I'm not even Inspector Gadget. But 2 and 2 equals 4 no matter how you chop it. And when you looked at this dude's alibi and you looked at his story and how things didn't add up, none of it made sense from the jump. And remember, folks, let's remember, I came into this case skeptical of all of these claims for the most part. I didn't believe that we were dealing with what we're dealing with right now. I had no idea what sort of viper's den I was walking into. But let me tell you what, where I am now and where I was then, boy, oh boy, what a journey it has been. And if you're willing to follow the evidence and you're willing to do that in an unbiased nature and just follow it wherever it leads you, it turns into quite the wild ride. And that interview that Prince Andrew did was so damning. And we discussed it at the time, that it was going to come back and haunt him, man. And here we are. And this is the reason, remember also, like I told you folks, this is the reason that this guy does not want to sit down with FBI investigators. If he does that, you think Emily Maitlis was hard on him? These dudes are going to walk him straight into a perjury trap. Bing, bang, boom, done and finished. And his lawyers aren't having any of it. They know the deal. They know that if they give this interview to the FBI, a sit-down interview, that they're going to be open to cross-examination and they'll be exposed. So they don't want to do it. They want to give a written declaration and deposition of what occurred. Andrew, 60, told Newsnight's Emily Maitlis last year, "I wasn't staying there. I may have visited, but definitely didn't. Definitely no activity." That was what Prince Andrew told Emily Maitlis. Now, go back and rewatch the interview if you need a refresher course. Look at what he said during that interview, what we knew then, but now what the Daily Mail is coming out and confirming. These people in the legacy media have known all of this for all of these years, and none of them have decided to initiate an investigation. It wasn't politically expedient for them. They weren't able to wield it as a political cudgel, so these girls didn't matter. And it just goes back to the heart of the whole entire failure by the institutions that are in place to stop things such as these, and if not stop them, make sure the people who engage in them pay. And none of that occurred. But a Mail investigation has discovered both the Duke and a Scotland Yard bodyguard did spend the night at Epstein's townhouse, the largest in the city. Oh yeah, I mean, look, must be nice, right? You're the Prince of England. You could stay wherever you want. I don't know how many times I got to go into this one, but boy, here we are again, huh? You could stay wherever you want. You're in New York City, an absolute mecca of accommodations. All sorts of fantastic places to stay. And you choose to stay with Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted sex offender, because it's expedient. Because you're trying to save the taxpayers a couple of dollars. All of a sudden, Airline Andy is worried about saving a few dollars. All of a sudden, the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family is thrifty. I'm sorry, it doesn't add up. It was during this 3-day trip to the United States that the prince's accuser, Virginia Roberts, alleges she slept with the father of two for a second time after a previous encounter in London. Claims the Duke has always denied. Yeah, not denied properly, though, in my opinion. I mean, has he really denied it, though? Like, what is he... He might have come out and verbally denied it, but what proof has been provided? We have seen no proof provided by any of these people. It's all technicalities. It's all loopholes, and it's never innocence or guilt for these people. Because 9 times out of 10, with these scumbag so-called elites, they're all guilty of something, right? Well-placed sources have confirmed Andrew stayed at Epstein's $60 million home on the final night of his pre-Easter visit to the U.S. in 2001 to save taxpayers' money. Again, I don't buy that for one single second. He has never worried about saving the taxpayers' money. Now, all of a sudden, we're supposed to believe that he's running around like a miser, not spending any money and slumming it on people's couches? Yeah, the Prince of England, that's exactly what's happening. He's couch surfing, folks, to save you money. I wonder where all this thriftiness was when he hopped on that plane to go watch some golf. An official itinerary seen by the Daily Mail shows that the Duke spent the first night of his U.S. trip at the residence of the British Consul General in New York. Then flew to Boston for 24 hours before returning to New York, where he slept at a private address. Oh, not so private. We know where he was. Over at his BFF, Jeffrey Epstein's house. Couch surfing, watching The Crown, watching some TV. I mean, really? Is that really what you would have me believe? That a prince of the royal blood from England is reduced to couch surfing to save the taxpayers' money? I'm giving you guys a chance here. That's the narrative we're going with. That's what you want to stick to, right? Okay. All right. That's the narrative then, I guess. That address was Epstein's home near Central Park, the sources have confirmed. Our investigations have also uncovered a gap of a few hours set aside in New York for what was called private time in the Duke's confidential tour itinerary. Private time, huh? I wonder what you were doing in your private time, old Joe Exotic of the Windsor family. I know. You were just hanging out, and you guys were at the museum taking a look at the artwork. It'll be some asinine excuse, some asinine alibi that won't make any sense, that some people will buy hook, line, and sinker, but in reality, we all know it's a bunch of nonsense, just like everything else this guy has said about the nights in question. Let's just end it all right now. End it all right now. Let's cut to the chase. Go and speak to the FBI, Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, sit down with them, and do the honorable thing. Andrew has not been able to explain what he was doing during this time, but Miss Roberts and another Epstein masseuse have both said they met him in the city. So I guess all of the girls are lying, right? Virginia's a liar. The other girls are liars. Everyone's lying, and Jeffrey Epstein and his scummy ass associates, they're all telling the truth because they're all pillars of society, folks. They are all model citizens who we should all try and look up to and try and be like. That's basically what they're telling us here. There's actual witnesses, eyewitnesses, multiple. And we're still getting the BS narrative that these girls were prostitutes by some two-bit hack writer from the Telegraph. Where was all that piss and vinegar when Jeffrey Epstein was abusing these girls? That's the question you should ask yourself before you read one single article penned by somebody like that. Miss Roberts, now a mother of 3, living in Australia, claims she was trafficked by Epstein to have sex with the Duke on 3 occasions in 2001, including in New York around Easter that year when she was 17. Andrew strongly denies her allegations and says he cannot even recall meeting her, despite the pair being apparently pictured together at Miss Maxwell's London home on March 10th, 2001. And this is what I mean. How can we believe anything that this fool says when we have the picture of them together? How could anyone discount that? What, it's fake? Is that what you're saying? You're going to need to provide experts to show that that's fake. Not your word, not Prince Andrew's word. What is he, some sort of expert in the matters of Photoshop pictures or false pictures? I'm pretty sure the dude's not even an expert in pairing his own socks, okay? The Duke is alleged to have had sex with Miss Roberts in New York at the same time he was accused of a bizarre groping incident involving a spitting image puppet and another young female at Epstein's mansion. The other...
Is eating fish healthy? Certainly not for the fish, and most definitely not for the oceans. That's the reason the Sarno brothers, founding chefs at Good Catch Foods, began perfecting 100% plant-based seafood. They wanted sustainable options that are respectful of all creatures and don't harm our oceans. Ask your grocer for Good Catch Foods like tuna and crab cakes, or shop online at goodcatchfoods.com. Then, host your own Fishless Friday and feel good about every bite.
Woman, Johanna Schuberg, has not alleged any improper conduct by Andrew. So, let's think about this for a minute, okay? Andrew has the reputation of somebody who is a womanizer, right? Always out trying to chase down women, always pictured around a bunch of women, blah, 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 blah. He has this buddy, Jeffrey Epstein, who has a house full of girls all the time, a house full of attractive girls all the time, model types. You really think that Airlines Andy, the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, is going to pass up that opportunity? You really think it's above this moron to have that kind of frat boy behavior where there's a puppet in his likeness there and he decides it's a good idea to fondle somebody with it? You think that's out of the realm of possibility with everything we know about this moron, the profile that's already been built? Sorry, but it seems likely to me that this occurred. When asked by Miss Mateless on Newsnight about Miss Schuberg's spitting image account, the prince seemed to concede that he might have visited the property. Andrew told her, "I probably did. Because of what I was doing, I was staying with the Consul General, which is further down the street on 5th. So I wasn't staying there. I may have visited, but definitely didn't. Definitely. No activity." And we know that's a lie too, because we know that the people that worked for Epstein would always be in scramble mode when the prince was showing up. We know that from Zorro Ranch. I heard that from firsthand accounts while I was down there, and we know it from New York. Everyone would scramble when the prince was coming. Everyone would scramble when Bill Clinton was coming. These are the heavy hitters, right? These are the big game trophies that Jeffrey Epstein has collected along the way, and they had to be treated like royalty, right? Details of how the prince gave an inaccurate account of his New York sleeping arrangement during his bumbling BBC interview follow a major investigation by this newspaper into the claims made against him by Miss Roberts. Today we reveal the key findings from our probe into Andrew's trip to the city. This includes how confidential official documents reveal the Duke had made provisions for 3 hours of private time, around the time he allegedly bedded Miss Roberts at Epstein's home. Now, these are all the bullet points of their investigation. How neither of his 2 Scotland Yard bodyguards on the trip, nor his equerry, are able to provide an alibi for his part of his schedule. Of course not. Nobody's ever been able to provide the alibi, and that's what I've been talking about, right? That's all I've been saying. Let's get to the bottom of all of this shit. Why should there be 2 different tiers of justice? If this was dealing with regular people, look how quick Keith Raniere and his boys were all swooped up, his girls, I should say. Look how quick R. Kelly was swooped up. That's what needs to happen here. An unprecedented hour-by-hour reconstruction of the Duke's reputationally disastrous 3-day trip to New York and Boston, including references to official letters, itineraries, and flight times. How the Duke requested the use of a Bentley in New York. Yeah, thrifty as it is, I'm going to get me a Bentley to drive around New York. I don't know if you folks have been to New York recently. Well, maybe now with the COVID pandemic, but in the best of times, driving around in the city, not the most fun in the world. Probably better off taking transportation, especially if you're rich. So what the hell did he need a Bentley for? I'm sure he wasn't driving it around, right? So who is the person driving it? What do they know about his whereabouts that day? How key news sources have questioned whether the Duke attended all his scheduled appointments on the trip. How a Scotland Yard bodyguard insists that Epstein, Maxwell, and Virginia had left New York for the tycoon's private island in the Caribbean when the Duke stayed at his pedophile friend's place on the third night of the trip. Folks, what more do you want here? I mean, come on. It's crazy to think that this guy has not been brought in for questioning. And you all know how I feel. Like I always say, innocent until proven guilty for sure. All of these people. Every last one of them, even if we have a mountain of probable cause and circumstantial evidence. Nobody's guilty until that judge's gavel comes down and they've been judged by 12 of their peers. But boy, it does not look good for these people. It does not look good for Prince Andrew. And the accusations made against him are heavy. So he needs to answer for them. If this was anybody else, normal people, in any country, I'm guessing, the cops would have already been at their door for a nice, intimate chat. On Saturday, in the first part of our exclusive 4-part series on the case, we exposed new doubts over the prince's extraordinary alibi that he was at a party at Pizza Express in Woking, Surrey, on the day he allegedly first slept with Miss Roberts in London. We revealed that according to a family diary, the Duke had booked a manicure at home on the afternoon he says he dropped off Princess Beatrice at the party, and that neither she nor the party hosts can recall if he attended. So, having the Duke of York at your kid's party is probably a pretty big deal, right? Probably something you would remember. Not in this case. Nobody remembers him being there. Not even his own daughter. That's pretty damning. Not looking good for the prince. But our investigation also raised questions about the accuracy of Miss London's claims that she went clubbing in London with the Duke that evening and her description of the bathtub where she says they later had sex. The Mail asked Andrew's spokesman a series of questions about his trip to New York in April 2001 and the allegations made by Miss Roberts. So they're saying that there's always paparazzi outside of anywhere Andrew goes, and there was no paparazzi outside of Tramp that night, so no one got a picture of him. All right? Okay? Filed. The bathtub's too small. All right? Filed. Is that it? Is that all you found in your expansive investigation into the claims? Because if so, boy, oh boy, it's gonna be a rough go of it for these people. The Mail asked Andrew's a spokesman for the Duke said it would not be appropriate to comment on any of these matters. Miss Roberts' representatives in New York have not responded to repeated requests to comment, and I doubt any of them are going to respond, Prince Andrew or Virginia's representation at this point. It's getting real heated right now. We're getting close to the Maxwell situation, and things are starting to speed up. So I would expect people to retreat to their bunkers at this point. By Richard Pendlebury and Stephen Wright for the Daily Mail. Monday, April 9th, 2001, saw a day of extreme weather across New York City. Lowering skies, thunder, lightning, and hailstones the size of dimes, one observer noted. It would prove a suitably sulfurous and doom-laden backdrop to the arrival in town that lunchtime of Prince Andrew, the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, aboard British Airways Flight 175 from Heathrow. Boy, the weather portended the terrible situation this idiot was going to find himself in, huh? Is that what they're trying to tell us? All right, I guess. The limousine of his choice was waiting at JFK Airport to whisk His Royal Highness to Her Majesty's Consul General's palatial residence just yards from Central Park. This would be the Duke's sleeping quarters for the first night of a 3-day working visit to the United States Eastern Seaboard. Again, why are you couch surfing, bruh? I mean, I'm guessing that you and the council probably were partying like you were with Jeffrey Epstein. That's my guess. But I would think that if you're representing the country, that you'd want to stay at a nice hotel. I could see the consul general's house, right? All right, a representative of the nation, blah, blah, blah. But staying with Epstein, there's just no excuse for it. No logical excuse exists on this planet or in this universe for why he would stay with Jeffrey Epstein. Long in the planning, the official schedule went like clockwork. One of his party recalls, alas, a royal spanner was to find its way into those works. The Duke had made a number of personal arrangements to fit around his formal duties. Once in Manhattan and left to his own devices, the evidence suggests it had not taken long for Andrew to put himself in a compromising situation, which has caused serious harm to his reputation. F his reputation, folks. This dude is being accused of partaking in abusing a sex-trafficked woman. I don't care even if Virginia was 30, he'd have to answer for this. Never mind 17. An important element of that evidence, which can be revealed by the Mail today, are the 2 words which appear on the confidential and until now unpublished official itinerary, which was faxed from royal offices in London to the Consul General's team 4 days earlier. They indicate the Duke's intentions for the 5 hours between 1:45 p.m. when his plane touched down at JFK and 6:45 p.m. when he was to leave the residence to go to a formal dinner. Those 2 words are private time, lasting from 2:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Given the date and location and the serious allegations made against him, this otherwise innocuous phrase is now loaded with significance, if not danger. It's 100% right and accurate. This is serious jeopardy to have something like this on the books. Again, I'm following the evidence here, folks, okay? I am following the evidence, and the evidence points to Prince Andrew being an epic liar, being a royal liar, and not being the honorable man he would like us think that he is. So, as all of this evidence continues to pile up and the receipts begin to pile up, I don't see how there is not more of a serious push here for them to really, really go after having an interview with Andrew. And furthermore, I'd like to see this kind of reporting that we see here done on Bill Clinton and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, because a reckoning is coming there as well. The relationship between Epstein and powerful people like Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton must be explored from top to bottom. Nothing can be left unturned. A modern-day Mephistopheles. What happened during those private hours? The U.S. Department of Just Us would certainly like to know. The whole world would like to know. It's an international cause célèbre. The Queen's second, and some say favorite son, had always liked the Big Apple. While often brusque and with suspicious of strangers and jealous of his own hereditary status and entitlements, Andrew enjoyed escaping from the intense scrutiny, formality, and protocol which surrounded him in Commonwealth countries. Oh boy, it must have been rough. It must have been rough to be born in purple. It must have been rough to have been born the Queen's favorite son. Is this guy for real? So you have to go and let your hair down by hanging out with a child sex predator? But he had a particular reason to look forward to this trip, his burgeoning friendship with an obscure, but an extremely generous and laid-back Wall Street billionaire and pedophile named Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein happened to own the biggest townhouse in Manhattan, covering 7 floors and 28,000 square feet of the Upper East Side. The mansion's comforts and facilities were even more extensive and considerably less stuffy among its decor, prosthetic breasts wobbling on the bathroom walls, than those of the Consul General's residence. Oh yeah, he wanted to have all of that, right? Get up for the morning constitutional there and look at pictures of little girls, teenagers, prosthetic breasts. I mean, that's the kind of morning everybody wants to wake up to, huh? Have your tea and crumpets, in the room. Take a look at Bill Clinton in a dress on the wall. Sounds like a fantastic way to start your day. Said nobody ever. 5 years divorced from Sarah, the Duchess of York, and nearing the end of a not undistinguished military career, this midlife Duke, aged 41, was about to enter a new epic alone. With the impending retirement from the role by the Duke of Kent, Andrew had been anointed by his mother to become the UK's next special representative for international trade and investment. Trade and investment, huh? Trading in scumbaggery, trading in grifting, trading in lies and secrets. Talk about a pathetic representation of the great nation of England. Sources say he felt he needed to find a mentor well-versed in what was, to him, the alien world of big business. Someone outside the Buckingham Palace yes sir, no sir bubble, as one acquaintance describes it. What he got was not a guide, but a modern-day Mephistopheles. It would be an understatement to say that his Epstein connection came back to haunt Andrew. Look, man, he needed to go to Andrew to be his mentor. There's nobody else on Wall Street that could have been your go-to guy, somebody halfway decent. I mean, look, they're all thieves, right? But how about somebody that doesn't deal in little children? How about somebody that's not abusing women? That might have been a better idea for the Prince of England, right? A safer route. The relationship and all it allegedly entailed would eventually see the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family banished from public life and facing demands, as he does today, to submit to Department of Justice questioning in a sensational case which sprang from the pedophile Epstein's voracious appetite for underage girls. That's the proper way to put it, right? Voracious appetite for underage girls. That's what it was. That's who Jeffrey Epstein was, and he had that need met. As long as he was providing the compromat on these people, everything was going to be all gully. The Duke is not a suspect in their inquiries as far as the Mail is aware, but the U.S. authorities believe he is a potentially vital witness in their investigation into Epstein and others' criminal activities. You know how I feel about that, right? Anytime they're telling you you're a witness in a federal investigation, lawyer up. Do not talk to them. Lawyer up right away. Not a word spoken to the Jakes. Because this is the beginning of your downfall. And Andrew knows that. They're not saying he's more than a witness because, that's how they play ball. But we know the score here. If he was just a witness, this would have been settled, wrapped, and sealed a long time ago. Epstein would be jailed in 2008 after admitting he had procured 2 such girls for the purpose of prostitution. Having secured a secret sweetheart deal of the century with federal prosecutors, the financier, pedophile, served only 13 months, much of which was spent on day release. We talked about this earlier with the damning article from the Palm Beach Post that lit them on fire for their behavior. And it was 100% correct and factual. These people were negligent at best in the way they conducted themselves with Epstein's first prosecution. But the claims of his survivors, of whom there were dozens, would not go away. The case was reopened in July 2019. Epstein was rearrested on suspicion of further pedophile-related offenses. On August 10th, 2019, while on remand in New York, he hanged himself in his prison cell, allegedly. Epstein is now beyond the reach of public accusations and criminal investigation. His former friend, the Prince, is not. And in Virginia Roberts, he faces one of Epstein's abused survivors and an accuser of singular determination and desire to see him brought to some kind of official account. And Virginia has been steadfast in her pursuit of this man being accountable for what she says he did to her. And I think that it's beyond time that he answers these hard questions. The Duke of York emphatically denies having any sexual relations with Miss Roberts or any minor. His advisors brief that he will be exonerated and able to return to public life. That remains to be seen. His stock currently remains in the basement, and so does he. He's like one of these neckbeard coffee shop revolutionaries who live in their mother's basement at this point, right? That's what he's doing. He's living at his mom's pad, hiding behind mommy's skirts. But in a forensic investigation, over several months, the Mail has uncovered never-before-seen documents, heard multiple new testimonies, and thrown new light and detail on crucial episodes. They've done a good job, right? The Mail has done a really good job tying this up, putting it together. And to be honest, though, we have all had all of this locked in and loaded for a long time. What they're doing here is they're giving legitimacy to that work for the unsullied. We have examined the gaps, contradictions, and lack of recall in the Duke's narrative, as well as the consistency of Miss Roberts' own, so far, widely accepted claims. Not least, their thus far unexplained variances and anomalies, which inevitably would be severely tested if ever presented in a court of law.
At Ease, we're all about calculating the best high for you. Ran out of shows to watch for the second time this week? Order an Indica pre-roll. Social distance park hang? Pair that awkward picnic with a vaporizer. See, we're like your weed guy, but 420% nerdier. So just worry about when you're going to take that edible and let us do the rest. Ease, highly calculated cannabis delivery. Get 30% off your first order with promo code NERD at ease.com. That's EAZE.com.
You might think President Barack Obama and music icon Bruce Springsteen are unlikely friends, but for more than a decade, the pair has built a relationship around their shared sensibilities and values. Now you can listen to their poignant conversations about fatherhood, race, marriage, music, and the country that's given them both so much. Click the banner to play Renegades, Born in the USA, a Spotify original podcast produced by Higher Ground Audio.
Presented by Comcast.
Bring it on. Let's see it. That is exactly what I'm pining for. Again, I don't speak for anybody but myself, and all I've ever called for is a fair and thorough investigation into these matters and accusations, just like it would be for any of us. So yeah, let's get all of the information. And if all you have is the bathtub is too small, boys and girls, you better get these people all fitted for outfits matching Ghislaine. On Saturday, in the first part of this series, we examine the particulars of their first alleged encounter in London on Saturday, March 10th, 2001. We expose troubling questions over the Duke's alibi for his movements that day, in particular regarding his supposed trip to drop his eldest daughter, Beatrice, off at a party held in the Woking branch of Pizza Express. We also spoke to witnesses whose testimony throws new light on claims he and Miss Roberts had danced at Tramp nightclub before returning to Ghislaine Maxwell's Knightsbridge Mews house, where an infamous picture was taken of the pair of them, a picture which the Duke supporters feel could be fake. Okay, let's address some of this. So, they say that her account is not true because, well, the prince doesn't do that stuff. He doesn't dance like that. And there's no VIP at the Tramp. I'm sure there was nothing roped off for Prince Andrew, okay? So, again, it gets down into minutia, the details. Oh, was it a VIP room or a roped off area? Because there's no VIP room and the prince don't drink. We know that for a fact, huh? We know that he never drinks. We know that maybe this was a celebratory night. Epstein brought him a girl. Maybe he's fired up. Maybe he wants to get drunk. We don't know because he won't answer any questions under oath. Today we move on to their second alleged encounter during the Duke of York's visit to the United States in April 2001, and new findings as tantalizing as they are troubling. Only a Bentley will do for HRH. The Duke's trip to New York that Easter week did not concern the boosting of UK trade. He would not take up his envoy role until he formally left the Royal Navy that July. Rather, he was traveling in his capacity as the chairman of trustees of the Outward Bound Trust. Boy, they have all of these titles, huh? All of these different roles that they're in charge of, all of these different positions that they're the honcho at. Meanwhile, the guy can't even tie his shoes correctly. So you want to talk about privilege? You want to talk about somebody who has been given everything and screwed it up? You're looking at him with the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, folks. This educational charity was started in 1941 by the founder of the Duke's old boarding school, Gordonston. It had a significant presence in the United States, but it would be expensive, both to the OBT and the British taxpayer. The Duke did not travel economy class. He did not travel without an entourage, which included his two-man security detail. Oh, I thought he was thrifty, though. I thought he was staying with Epstein to save the taxpayers money. Confidential official papers seen by the Mail demonstrate how the visit was micromanaged. The Duke was to be picked up at his then home, Sunninghill Park, at 10 a.m. on April 9th. Dress suit, says the itinerary, which the Mail has had sight of. See what I mean? This dude couldn't even figure out what to wear in the morning unless somebody put it out for him. Unless some commoner put out his suit for him and got shit together, this guy wouldn't have any idea of what to do. He would arrive at Heathrow at 10:35 a.m. The BA flight would leave half an hour later. No queuing for the Duke. Andrew, the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, would be accompanied on the outward leg by 3 followers, 2 of whom were army officers. The more senior was Major General Sir Michael Hobbs, the director of the Outward Bound Trust. Sir Michael's family was steeped in royal service. His grandmother had been a lady-in-waiting to Queen Mary, wife of King George V. The junior officer was Captain Richard Dilworth of the Royal Engineers. A bluff Lancastrian, Dilworth was the Duke's personal equerry. I have nothing really to add to any of that, folks. I don't know what any of that stuff really even means. I'm not too familiar with how the English set this up for their royal family. I know they have entourages, but I don't really know their roles well enough to, get down into the minutia there. The third member of the party was the Duke's senior personal protection officer, a metropolitan policeman of inspector rank whom we shall call Policeman A. Oh, no names, right? That's always nice. Policeman A, Policeman B. Perfect. Another PPO, a sergeant, Policeman B, had flown to New York the day before to conduct the second of 2 recesses for the visit. Both police officers' costs were paid for by the Metropolitan Police. Confidential documents confirm. So worried about the taxpayer's dollar, huh? That he had all of these other expenses, all this other money. What would have been a couple of extra fazools on top of that to get you a hotel room? The expenses of the Duke and Sir Michael were paid for by the charity according to other papers we have seen. There were other considerations. In a fax sent to Louise Redmond, the New York Consulate General Visits Officer, a royal aide had addressed the Duke's mode of transport while in New York. HRH wanted a suitably high status and British rather than American car. Aww, isn't that cute? I don't want an American car. You can save that Cadillac. It's Bentley for me. Ha 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 ha. Policeman B asked if I could ascertain what car the Duke of York would like to use in New York, the aide wrote. His Royal Highness has said the Bentley or whatever is appropriate. To that end, I would recommend that a Jaguar or similar might be appropriate, but not a Lincoln Town car. Outward Bound will provide a second car and driver for the equerry, and Sir Michael and I would be grateful if you could provide a driver for the Duke of York's car. The Duke got his Bentley. All right, so I guess the Duke wasn't driving the Bentley himself in New York, okay? So I didn't figure that would be the case, but then again, with this clown, you never know. Miss Redmond was at JFK Airport to greet the royal party, along with Bill Phillips, chairman of advertising giant Ogilvy and Mather, and head of Outward Bound International. Mr. Phillips was to be the Duke's official host. The Bentley took the Duke to the residence at North Forest East 66th Street. His luggage and entourage followed in 2 other vehicles. Oh man, what did he have, a baggage train? What is this, like William the Conqueror rolling through the city? Let me get my 4-car entourage. I need a baggage train. This guy's an absolute clown. The sleeping arrangements, the apartment had 5 bedrooms, including the Consul General's personal quarters, had been set. In another fax from across the Atlantic, on the evening of the 9th of April 2001, HRH and a personal protection officer will certainly be staying at the residence, it stated. The 3rd room will be taken either by Captain Dilworth or Sir Michael. Captain Dilworth would be the one to lose out. Yeah, I guess so. If you're just a captain, right? You ain't got no sir in front of your name, bruh. There is a pecking order. You're going to need to go down to the Residence Inn, homie, and get you a place down there. You ain't staying here. I would be grateful if you could secure 2 hotel rooms locally for the 2 members of the royal party who are not staying at the residence. I wonder if it would be possible for the entire party to have breakfast at the residence on the morning of the 10th April 2001, as this will essentially be a working breakfast. Oh, I'm sure it is. Working out the details on how you're going to slip away to go hang out with your boy Jeffrey. On arrival at the residence, the Duke's equerry busied himself with unpacking Andrew's luggage. Meanwhile, his senior protection officer went shopping in downtown Manhattan for an Apple Mac computer with the son of the Consul General. We understand he recalls. Oh, let's go get us some shopping in while you're here, buddy. We'll go down to the Apple store. That'll be fun, right, Terrence? Yeah, that'll be great, Philip. But what of the Duke? How did he spend his designated private time that afternoon and early evening? Teenage girls on Epstein's jet. First, we must examine another possibly significant air movement which took place that same day. And this stuff is just as damning, and if not more so, right? Him being on that plane is really bad news for him. Him being in Epstein's vicinity is bad news in general, right? But on that plane, it just adds more and more evidence to the mound that we have already built, that the prosecutors have already built. And Lord knows what they have behind the scenes. I'm sure it's a ton. According to the logbook of one David Rogers, Flight 1488 had taken off from Palm Beach International Airport. Mr. Rogers was Epstein's main pilot. The Gulfstream business jet he was flying that Monday belonged to the tycoon. And we also know he had another pilot, Larry Visosky. His logbook, about which Mr. Rogers has been questioned under oath, suggests that the passengers aboard Flight 1488 included Epstein, Virginia Roberts, a teenage girl called Banu, and a young woman named Joanne. The latter would appear to be Joanna Schuberg, then 21, who while at college in Florida had allegedly been recruited by Maxwell to work as a masseuse for Epstein. Now remember, he didn't know, Andrew didn't meet Virginia, he said. He has no idea who she is. He couldn't pick her out of a lineup. You've been on a plane with her, got a picture taken with her, according to her, abused her. That should jar your memory a bit there, shouldn't it, Joe Exotic of the Windsor family? The logbook shows the plane landed at Atlantic City, New Jersey, then took off again, Flight 1489, for the short hop to its final destination, Teterboro Airport, also in New Jersey. Teterboro is favored New York area hub for private jet traffic. It is unclear from the available data when Flight 1488 left Palm Beach, but a typical direct flight to New York takes little more than 2 hours. Teterboro Airport is less than 15 miles by road from the Epstein mansion. What happened next? As we shall see, an alleged sexual encounter bizarrely involving a spitting image puppet of the Duke himself. And we've talked about this, about the puppet, about how weird that shit was, and how that also lends credence to what Virginia has been telling us. I sat on Andrew's lap. Ghislaine put the spitting image puppet hand on Virginia's breast. Then he put his hand on mine. Duke's visit to the puppet master Epstein's mansion, this time for the night. Now remember, he said he never stayed the night there. I didn't stay the night there. I was just there hanging out. We were talking about gossip and we were just, talking about Wall Street trades. And this is what he wants us to believe. We know that's not the case, though. After Jeffrey Epstein had admitted in court in 2007 to procuring underage girls, Johanna Schuberg told a Sunday newspaper of an alleged encounter with the Duke at the East 71st Street mansion at Easter 2001. Boy, the times sure line up, huh? Time frame, Duke being there, stories. Sure looks like these girls have receipts, evidence, proof. She recalled that she returned to the apartment after some sightseeing, and the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family was there, and a couple of other girls my age. Andrew was very charming. She, Ghislaine, came down with a present for him, a latex puppet of him from Spitting Image. She added, we had a picture taken. Virginia, another girl there, sat on a chair and had the puppet on her lap. Andrew sat on another chair. I sat on his lap, and he put his hand on my breast. Ghislaine put the puppet's hand on Virginia's breast. Then Andrew put his hand on mine. It was a great joke. Everybody laughed. Ghislaine had a very dirty sense of humor. Yeah, we know that for sure. Looking back in hindsight, that is not just gross, it's creepy. Considering we know what sort of animal Ghislaine Maxwell is, what sort of bipedal serpent she is. And we know that another person is saying that Andrew is lying by saying he has never met Virginia. So at some point, all of the lies add up, and you just have to go with the fact that the person in question is an effing liar. This was the Duke in the world of Jeffrey Epstein before the advent of the Me Too movement. Miss Schuberg recalled this episode again in a deposition she gave under oath in 2016. Only fragments of this testimony have been released into the public domain. But the similarity is clear. Miss Schuberg said the Duke had thought the puppet funny because it was him. Then, I just remember someone suggesting a photo, and they told us to get on the couch. And so Virginia and Andrew sat on the couch, and they put the puppet on her lap. And so I sat on Andrew's lap, I believe of my own volition, and they took the puppet's hands and put it on Virginia's breast, and so Andrew put his on mine. It was all done in a joking manner. According to her accounts, the Duke, while being inappropriately tactile, to say the least, had not caused offense. She had sat on the lap of this famous stranger of her own volition. She thought him charming. You see, my point isn't the puppet, right? My point is that he's lying about knowing Virginia, and Miss Schuberg points that out here, even without her being directly asked. They retired to the dungeon. But what took the alleged encounter into a whole new sphere were the subsequent testimonies of Virginia Roberts. In interviews with a Sunday newspaper in 2011, her unpublished memoir, written in the same year, a deposition under oath given in 2015, and various later TV interviews, she corroborated Miss Schuberg's Spitting Image story, though on Panorama she says the puppet was put against Johanna's breast rather than her own. But she also went on to claim that after the puppet photograph interlude, she and Andrew retired to a massage room, the Dungeon, where they had sex. She claims they had first had sex in London a month before this. So that all adds up, right? They're on the couch, they're fooling around, they're, getting them. Andrew's getting himself a bit fired up, getting himself in the moment, flirting a little bit, and then, after all's said and done, right down to the dungeon so he can, fulfill his disgusting desires. That's sure the way it looks to me. That certainly seems to be the way this all broke down. Miss Roberts has previously said, "You are left with a foggy memory sometimes. You really are. And I might be wrong on dates, absolutely. And I might be wrong on places even sometimes." Given the length of time that has elapsed since these allegation incidents, that is only natural. However, in the deposition, she said, I had sex with Prince Andrew in Epstein's New York mansion in spring 2001. I was 17 at the time. Epstein called me down to his office. When I got there, Epstein was there along with Maxwell, Johanna Schuberg, and Andy. I was very surprised to see him again. Epstein and Maxwell were making lewd jokes about Randy Andy. I had the impression that Andy had come there to see Epstein and to have sex with me. There was no apparent purpose for Andy to be there. Of course that's what he was there for. He got a little taste in London, and he figured, hey, I'm in New York, I might as well pull up and see what Epstein can do for me while I'm here. Let me satiate my desires, and I'll keep it moving. She said Epstein paid her $400 for this service. None of these accounts suggest a time of day for the alleged encounter, but another unlikely alleged independent eyewitness has just come forward to go some way to corroborating the puppet story. And we've covered all of this, right? This is all stuff we have covered now. The puppeteer, the puppet, Steve Wright, who is the puppeteer. This is all stuff that we have been over. And it looks like the Daily Mail has just tied it all up in a little bow here. And that's awesome. That's a good job. It makes it streamlined for people to access it. Steve Wright, a 55-year-old puppeteer from Yorkshire, says he met the Duke at a Buckingham Palace reception in 2003. When he told Andrew what he did, the Duke allegedly said, "Oh my God, puppets! Spitting image! Do you know that my friend bought my spitting image puppet and you'll never believe it? He played a trick on me." Wright explained, the prince told me he went to an apartment in New York and saw the bloody thing sitting up on the sofa and that he nearly had a bloody heart attack as he was there looking at himself. The Epstein mansion was only 6-minute stroll via Fifth Avenue from the Consul General's residence. It was not forbidden for the Duke to be at Epstein's mansion, nor even noteworthy at the time. Epstein was still a man of apparently spotless character. What? He was also a good friend and mentor of the Duke. Why wouldn't the Duke pop over to see Epstein during his private time? Why otherwise would they contrive to miss each other given the opportunity? Agreed, but why lie about it? That's the rub. When asked by Emily Maitlis on Newsnight about Miss Schuberg's account, the Duke even seemed to concede he might have visited. Maitlis: "There was a witness there, Johanna Schuberg, who says you did visit the house in that month." Duke: "I probably did. Because of what I was doing, I was staying with the Consul General, which is further down the street on 5th, so I wasn't staying there. I may have visited, but definitely didn't. Definitely no activity." Maitlis didn't press the point further, which was good for the Duke, because within that stumbling reply, we can reveal he had made at least one statement which was patently inaccurate. Pretty much the whole thing was tattered with inaccuracies, but we'll just go with this, okay? Bodyguards stayed at Epstein's too. The Duke's schedule over the next 36 hours was packed with formal duties. That evening, he was escorted by his security detail and equerry from the residence to a dinner at the 5-star Mark Hotel, 500 yards beyond the Epstein mansion along 5th Avenue. The Duke's host was Bill Phillips, head of Outward Bound International. Afterwards, he was escorted back to the residence by Policeman A and stayed the night there. The Mail understands this has been confirmed by a security detail. So there's no wiggling out of this. He stayed there. How is he going to explain this now? How is he going to explain lying about staying at Epstein's? Let me go out on a limb here. I'm going to say that he's going to say, "Oh, I forgot. Yeah, I stayed there, but I had just forgotten because I was so busy." That's going to be the excuse. The following morning after breakfast, the itinerary shows the Duke was to leave for the School for the Physical City, where he was scheduled to be met by Richard Stoppel, director of the New York Outward Bound Schools. There followed a 2-hour tour of the facilities and further discussions with Mr. Stoppel before the Duke left for lunch at the New York Times building, hosted by Arthur Slutzberger, a chairman and publisher of the newspaper. No wonder the New York Times is so cowardice, huh? You got Mr. Sulzberger over here hanging out with the Duke. You really think they're going to put him on blast and light his ass up? Yeah, right. I don't even care about the little pedantic articles they write either over at the New York Times. What an embarrassment of an outlet that is. The Duke then met another outward-bound patron called Charlie Stetson before leaving for LaGuardia Airport at 4:30 p.m. He and his full entourage departed for Boston. LaGuardia? What a shitty airport. I never fly into LaGuardia when I fly into New York, only JFK. He spent most of the next 24 hours at an outward-bound facility on an island in the middle of Boston Harbor. It sounds like some kind of drug relapse rehab, right? The outward-bound facility. According to sources, Sir Michael Hobbs and Captain Dilworth raised glasses of Guinness in one of the city's many Irish pubs to toast the great success, as they saw it, of the royal visit before they caught an evening flight back to London. Cheers to that! Let's have us a Guinness. Brilliant! Such is hubris, because the Duke wasn't going home with them. In fact, he and his PPOs were already heading back to New York on flight DL 1841. Boy, that's funny, huh? DL, the down low flight. Down low 1841 is the new name of this flight, folks. The Duke paid for his own ticket this time because he was no longer working. Yeah, I'm sure he paid for it. I'm sure Jeffrey didn't pay for it. In fact, he was about to demonstrate just how close he was to Epstein. The Mail can reveal that despite his denial during the Newsnight interview, Andrew did spend the night of April 11th at the Epstein mansion, and they built forts, they had s'mores, they talked about all kinds of things. They even turned the bedroom into bunk beds, so they had all kinds of rooms for activities. In a fax sent from London shortly before his trip, a royal aide states only that His Royal Highness will return to New York on the evening of 11th of April after his visit to Boston. He will spend that evening at a private address in New York and will depart for Miami the following day. Boy, this guy, huh? The life this guy was leading on the back of the English taxpayer. Running around, taking part in trafficking rings, the whole nine. The private address was 9 East 71st Street. Sources close to the Duke have conceded. Epstein's mansion. They say that HRH, the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, and policeman A were alone there, apart from domestic staff. They insist that Epstein, Maxwell, and Roberts had already left the city before the Duke arrived. I do not believe that. I will just say it right here, folks. I don't believe it. So he's just hanging out at Epstein's pad by himself with the staff, huh? I'm sure that's what was occurring. The Mail understands that policeman A has confirmed this account and added that he stayed in his usual guest bedroom on the 4th floor. Oh, his usual guest bedroom, is it? I thought you never stayed there before, Andy. His usual bedroom, huh? An intriguing phrase in itself, with the Duke in a room nearby. It is worth recalling that the Duke has admitted staying with Epstein in New York in 2010, the final time they met. Yeah, the walk in Central Park, huh? How cute. The honorable thing to do. To fly over the pond to break up with your pedophile pal. David Rogers' pilot log also suggests the flight 1490 left Teterboro Airport for St. Thomas in the American Virgin Islands, the nearest landing ground to Epstein's private island, on April 11th. On board were Epstein, Maxwell, Bonu, Virginia Roberts, and Miss Schuberg. The logbook does not say when the flight left New York. Of course it doesn't. Why would they have any sort of trail? These people, for all of their failings and for all of their mental deficiencies, they weren't stupid people when it comes to laying out their plans. Riddle of the missing memories. So are there other witnesses who can testify to the Duke's whereabouts? The Mail has learned Captain Dilworth sent a polite letter to Bill Phillips, head of Outward Bound International, dated April 30th, 2001, thanking him for his hospitality. Mr. Phillips, died 2 years ago. But approached by the Mail this week, his widow Barbara had no recollection of him mentioning any such royal visit. I would have known if he had dined at the Mark, let alone with an English prince. He would have delighted in telling me, as we regularly discussed his work and Outward Bound. He's met with a lot of famous people, and there are lots of photos with him with those people, but none with the prince. While there is pictorial proof that the prince attended Outward Bound events in Boston, Richard Stopel, who is the current CEO of Outward Bound New York and was due to have hosted the Duke in the city on that second morning, equally said he couldn't remember Andrew visiting at Easter 2001. The whole entire narrative for the Duke is unraveling before our eyes here, folks. And this is all stuff we have known for the most part, besides some of this insider stuff with the English, right? And the picture it paints is damning. Neither I nor any other NYC Outward Bound school staff met with Prince Andrew or were even aware that he was visiting New York City, he said. He then checked with the man who was principal of the school for the physical city in 2001. Mr. Stopel reported, "He's a friend and we speak regularly." And I was intrigued. I thought it was my memory which was failing, but he doesn't recall this visit either. So, did they even go? Were they spending all this time at Epstein's mansion? These are questions that need to be answered. More bizarrely still, Tom Harris, UK Consul General in 2001, can't recall a visit by the Duke that Easter, nor could 2 of his 3 deputy consuls. Louise Redmond, the New York Consulate General, visits officer, is still in post. It was almost 20 years ago. Memories are hazy, though not as hazy as the Duke's has been. Look, I'm sorry, but I don't buy that really. When you meet somebody like the Prince of England, you remember it, right? If you're working for them in an intimate way, you certainly remember that. The Mail asked representatives of Andrew a series of questions about the allegations made by Miss Roberts. A spokesman for the Duke said it would not be appropriate to comment on any of these matters. However, the Mail understands that the Duke now recalls he stayed at Epstein's mansion that third night to save taxpayers some scrajol, rather than stay at a hotel while on his way to join the Duchess and their 2 daughters for a family holiday in the Bahamas. The several hundreds of pounds saved pales in comparison to the hundreds of thousands so far paid in legal and consultancy fees and the reputational catastrophe to him and the royal family that this relationship with Epstein has caused. This is the kind of damage that can never be fixed, folks. This is unfixable. There's no way to mitigate this. Mystery of Prince Andrew's first meeting with Jeffrey Epstein. He says it was sometime in 2000. So why did top lawyers suggest it was at least a year earlier? By Richard Pendlebury and Stephen Wright for the Daily Mail. So when did the Duke and the man whose friendship would cost him so dear first come into contact? Here, too, there are peculiar inconsistencies. The Mail has been told by one very well-placed source that Andrew believes his first ever meeting with Jeffrey Epstein took place over a lunch at the renowned Four Seasons restaurant in the Seagram building on East 52nd Street, Manhattan, sometime in 2000. That's pretty interesting. The Bronfmans owned Seagrams, right? And the Bronfmans, as you know, were wrapped up with NXIVM. And there are Bronfman ties here with Jeffrey Epstein, though a bit loose. But these people all rolled in the same circles. And it's interesting that this meeting took place at a Bronfman-owned location. The event was notable in one other detail. It was the only time the Duke ever saw Epstein wearing a suit, the source said. He invariably hung out in trainers, hoodies, and sweatshirts. Rather a slob. Well, look. If I was a billionaire even, I'd be walking around in hoodies and sweatshirts and sneakers anyway. So I don't agree with the slob part. But boy, he didn't look good the way he rolled, right? He did look like a slob, Jeffrey Epstein style. But if you rock that style correctly, I think it's a good look really, instead of a stuffy ass suit. For once, Epstein had dressed to impress. This was an opportunity to add a needy British prince to his impressive collection of former U.S. presidents, Hollywood stars, Silicon Valley hotshots, celebrity lawyers, and scientists who enjoyed flights on his business jet and visits to his private Caribbean island, New Mexico ranch, and mansions in New York and Palm Beach. So he was there to impress, folks. He was there to go big game hunting. I'm going to get me a big one on the line. And he did. The source said the introduction was arranged not by the Duke's ex-wife, the Duchess of York, as has often been reported, but by Epstein's then-girlfriend, co-conspirator, fellow child abuser, general all-around scuzzbag, and bipedal serpent, Ghislaine Maxwell, whom the Duke had known since she was an Oxford undergraduate in the 80s. Yeah, what do you know, huh? Nice little pearls that come through for the unsullied. I'm sure a lot of red pilling is going on when they're reading this article. Miss Maxwell is currently remanded in custody in the U.S., charged with assisting Jeffrey Epstein in his offenses and perjury. She faces 35 years in jail if convicted, but denies all of the allegations. The source said it was entirely straightforward first meeting, which came about because the Duke was migrating from the Navy to his ambassadorial role with UK trade, and he didn't know much about business. So he put the word out to those whom he considered to be friends. If you know any high-powered business people who I might be able to learn from, then please put me in touch with them. And of course, the bipedal serpent Ghislaine Maxwell was one of his friends. There is no denying that. One of his oldest friends, as much as anyone can be friends with senior members of the royal family. And she was dating Epstein at that stage, allegedly. You all know how I feel about that, right? Co-conspirators, etc., etc. So the point of the matter here is Ghislaine Maxwell and Andy are very connected. They're very locked at the hip. And Ghislaine Maxwell certainly has some beans to spill on this guy. So that was the genesis for their first meeting. It was a response from Ghislaine Maxwell to his request for help. The Duchess had nothing to do with it. She and Maxwell have never seen eye to eye. They have never liked each other. Maxwell was the Duke's sole link to Jeffrey Epstein. I agree with that. She was the middleman. She was the arbiter. And she was the vehicle that let Jeffrey Epstein enter so-called polite society. The Duke's recollection that he and Epstein first met in 2000 is arguably typical of his vague grasp of detail concerning events key to the serious allegations against him. No, he's doing it on purpose. He's lying, okay? I'll just say it. In my opinion, he's lying. This carelessness makes his team of crisis managers and legal advisors headed by the formidable Claire Montgomery QC wary of submitting him to U.S. Department of Justice demands for face-to-face interviews in London or New York. And we have talked about that forever, right? There's zero chance he's talking to anybody because he's lying. And it's not about guilt or innocence, it's about finding a loophole and a technicality. His disastrous performance 13 months ago on BBC Newsnight was a warning enough that the Duke lacked emotional intelligence and was insufficiently mentally agile, as one acquaintance termed it, to be put on the spot. However blameless his history, his memory is woeful, apparently. Oh yeah, I'm sure it's his memory. Let's blame the memory. Next thing you know, they'll come out and say that he has the beginning and onset stages of Alzheimer's. That'll be the next excuse. So how does this recall of the first meeting with Epstein check out? Certainly, Andrew was photographed in the company of Epstein and Maxwell at an event at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida in February of 2000. Before the year was out, the couple were the Duke's guests at a Sandringham shooting weekend. See how that works? Makes the introduction, Ghislaine Maxwell does, and before you know it, you're in Sandringham doing a shooting adventure. And that was the beginning of the end for the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family. Another attendee who spoke to the Mail described Maxwell as being as animated as Epstein was, monosyllabic. But there were other accounts which suggest the Duke and Epstein met earlier than 2000, at least as early as 1999. The Duke's name appears on flight logs for one of Epstein's aircrafts in February 1999, along with a former Miss Russia called Anna Molova. However, the accuracy of these passenger manifests has been questioned on a number of occasions. Yeah, there's been questions, right? For sure. That's why the Duke needs to answer for all of this. He needs to speak to the FBI and clear all of this up. In lieu of that, these questions are going to continue to build. Then this summer, the New York Post quoted a pal of Maxwell's who claimed that it was not Ghislaine, but the businesswoman and socialite Lynn Forrester de Rothschild who introduced Andrew to Epstein at a party in the Hamptons in July 1999. Perhaps another indicator of an introduction predating 2000, and the motive behind it is a letter which the Duke allegedly wrote to Epstein's lawyer, Alan Dershowitz. It was to thank Dershowitz for keeping his underpants on, for having given him a tour of the Harvard Law School library. The letter was dated September 30th, 1999. Folks, it's a wrap, right? Andrew is a liar. We all know that now. Anyone who was on the fence needs to understand who they're dealing with and what they're dealing with right now. Dershowitz, who Miss Roberts has also accused of having had underage sex with her, which he furiously denies, has reproduced the text in his autobiography. Andrew allegedly wrote to him, "I look forward to continuing my intellectual challenge with you and Jeffrey E. in the coming months." Dershowitz commented, he clearly looked at Jeffrey Epstein as somebody who could educate him, whether in matters of finance or anything else, I don't know. Given the continuing haziness of his memory, how to demonstrate a clear and convincing recall of past events was not part of the Duke's Epstein tutorials, it would appear. Look, this is damning stuff, all right? And the timeline that Andrew has provided does not match up. So as usual, I'll leave it up to all of you folks to decide. All of you are way more than capable of coming to your own conclusions. And with that, I will wrap up this marathon episode and let you folks know that I will be back later on with a little bit more. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. All right, folks, I'll be back later on, and we'll pick up where we left off.
At Ease, we're all about calculating the best high for you. Ran out of shows to watch for the second time this week? Order an Indica pre-roll. Social distance park hang? Pair that awkward picnic with a vaporizer. See, we're like your weed guy, but 420% nerdier. So just worry about when you're going to take that edible and let us do the rest. Ease, highly calculated cannabis delivery. Get 30% off your first order with promo code NERD at ease.com. That's EAZE.com.
You might think President Barack Obama and music icon Bruce Springsteen are unlikely friends, but for more than a decade, the pair has built a relationship around their shared sensibilities and values. Now you can listen to their poignant conversations about fatherhood, race, marriage, music, and the country that's given them both so much. Click the banner to play Renegades, Born in the USA, a Spotify original podcast produced by Higher Ground Audio.
Presented by Dollar Shave Club.